A chilling whistle cuts through the storm, slow, haunting, and drawing closer. Damaso knows the legend, and now he's living it. The year was 1980. The village of Los Llanos, a breathtaking place surrounded by lush greenery and endless farmlands, was known for its peaceful nights. But that night was anything but peaceful. Damaso, a young boy spending his holidays at his uncle's farm, lay awake in bed. He had tried everything, turning over, closing his eyes, counting, but sleep refused to come. His room was silent except for the rhythmic hum of the ceiling fan. Then, a scream. Not a human scream, but the chilling cries of frightened animals. The sound shattered the silence, slicing through the night like a knife. Damaso shot up in bed, his pulse pounding in his ears. He rushed outside, heart hammering in his chest. The cries were coming from the animal shelter. He stepped into the open. A strong gust of wind hit him, carrying the scent of wet earth. The sky had transformed into a monstrous mass of black storm clouds, rumbling as if the heavens themselves were warning of something unnatural. He turned his attention to the cows. They were panicked, kicking and thrashing wildly. He had never seen them this terrified before. He tried to calm them, but something felt wrong. And then it hit him that a stench, thick, suffocating, rotting flesh. Damaso gagged, his stomach churning as the overwhelming odor burned his nostrils. The rain started pouring down, drenching his clothes as he desperately herded the cows into safety. But with every step he took, the smell only got stronger. And then he saw it at a pile of bloody bones, gleaming wet and fresh in the dim moonlight. The rancid stench wrapped around him, suffocating, consuming. His breath hitched, his throat dry as terror clutched at his chest. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Something was here. And then, the whistle that a sound so eerie, so unnatural, it made his blood turn to ice. It started soft, a slow, haunting tune drifting through the storm. But with every passing second, it grew louder, closer. Damaso froze. His heart pounded so hard he could barely hear the rain. He knew this sound. Everyone in the village did. El Silbon had come for him. Terror seized his body. He remembered the stories. Whispers passed down from the elders, each one more horrifying than the last .1 tale. In particular, echoed in his mind. A man, traveling on horseback through an open field, had stumbled upon a deer bone, but the flesh clinging to it was human. Before he could react, a whistle pierced the night. His horse bucked, refusing to move. And then, a massive shadow fell over him. A 19-foot-tall creature loomed above. Its rotting flesh hung in strips, and a sack full of bones dripped fresh blood. With a sickening grin, it reached into its sack and pulled out a bone, a human bone, and in one brutal swing, split the man's skull open WY morning. Only his skeleton remained. Now, standing alone in the storm, Damaso knew he was next. His body trembled as a dark shadow slithered across the ground. And then it stepped forward, towering, rotting, unholy. His straw hat barely covered his decaying face, and his tattered body reeked of death. In his bony hands, he clutched a blood-stained sack. El Silbon, Damaso's mind screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. His eyes locked onto the bag of bones, the blood still fresh, dripping onto the mud. Then El Silbon moved. Not like a man, but like a beast, leaping from tree to tree, his whistle never stopping, never wavering. Damaso finally snapped out of his trance. He turned and ran for his life, his breath ragged, his feet slipping in the thick, wet mud. But no matter how fast he ran, the whistling followed. Then, a growl that a deep, ferocious bark rang through the storm. Damaso turned to see his dog, standing its ground, snarling at the monstrous entity. El Silbon froze. His body went rigid, and then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he vanished into the night. Damaso collapsed onto his knees, gasping for breath. His dog had saved his life, because if there was one thing El Silbon feared, it was dogs. The villagers say El Silbon wasn't always a monster. He was once a spoiled, selfish boy, an only child who got everything he wanted. One night, he demanded venison for dinner. His father went into the jungle to hunt, but after hours, he didn't return. The impatient boy grew angry. With a sharp kitchen knife, he went out to find his father. When he returned home, he brought with him a sack of meat. His mother began to cook, but something was wrong. The smell like tea wasn't dear. When his grandfather discovered the truth, he dragged the boy outside and tied him to a tree. He whipped him mercilessly, his skin peeling away in bloody strips. But that wasn't enough. He rubbed chili and alcohol into the wounds, tied the sack of bones onto the boy's back, and set 2 rabid dogs upon him. Cursed to roam forever, the boy became a monster, a creature born of guilt, rage, and eternal suffering. And so he wanders the land, his whistle an omen of death, his sack forever filled with bones. But dogs. Dogs remind him of his punishment, that's why every household in Los Llanos keeps a dog. Because if you hear the whistle, it's already too late.